my way of approaching this issue of international involvement in Kosovo was, first of all, to pin down it was unavoidable to have significant international involvement in Kosovo due to the genesis of this country. So after 1999, it's clear, I don't think it's contested, it was not just KFOR that was needed, but a set of international organizations to make this country work as soon as possible. Many internationals came to this country with relevant experience and good intention, and I think actually when we judge their work, we have to say at least partly their work was useful. I would just give a few examples. So even if we criticize international organizations, for example, budget discipline in the Kosovo government, the proper representation of women in politics, or institutions such as the ombudsman couldn't take place, or at least actually partly due to the work of internationals. So, if we agree that international involvement was necessary, we can go on, but at the same time, too much international involvement, especially in the politics of a country, in the long run, is something which is not desirable. Definitely, it distorts political development in a country, especially in a nascent democracy such as Kosovo. I think this is acknowledged even by internationals themselves. If you take the example of Bosnia and Herzegovina, there was a great deal of international involvement after Dayton there too. But after a decade, so let's say around 2005, 2006, after the peak of intervention on the side of the Office of the High Representative, clearly there was a decision to reduce the level of international involvement, and I think we can observe a similar process here in Kosovo. And then let's see to what degree there is a dependency culture in Kosovo politics due to international involvement. In my opinion, there is less dependency here in Kosovo than it was in Bosnia and Herzegovina, or than it is actually in Bosnia and Herzegovina. I think due to the bomb powers, the high representative in Bosnia had such huge power. Just to make sure actually you know the facts, the high representative in Bosnia and Herzegovina had the right to make legislation to get around the parliament. If there was no agreement in the Bosnian parliament, then the high representative made actually his own legislation. At the same time, he had the right to replace politicians due to anti-Dayton behavior. If someone criticized actually the peace process too harshly, he was replaced by the high representative. I think these are very, very strong powers, and in spite of the UN administration in this country, I think it was stronger in practice in Bosnia and Herzegovina. But of course, it's open to discussion. It's my personal opinion. Dependency culture. We can talk about dependency culture in conflict resolution, in conflict resolution skills. I think that's a problem, and in Bosnia and Herzegovina it's a huge problem that the local political forces always calculate, at least calculate with the international factor when they sparkle a conflict. Sometimes they clearly count on the intervention of the High Representative, or sometimes even embassies, foreign embassies. That's something I haven't observed that much here in Kosovo. And just get to probably the most important point in this discussion. I think it's good. Therefore, I don't think that the international community here in Kosovo should get involved too much into the current political crisis. It may seem tempting sometimes, but if the international factor fixes the conflict once, it can be interpreted, okay, we overcame the conflict, it's good. But in the long term, then who will fix the next conflict? If local political forces don't get used to the way of solving conflicts, then I don't think it can be called a functioning political life, functioning democracy. So personally, I absolutely support the law of life approach during the political conflict in the last couple of months, and that's the way to continue. Local political forces must find solutions. Where I can see more problems when it comes to dependency culture. This is the skill how to run the state administration efficiently. Because obviously, with a good intention, many donors and internationals try to help Kosovo state to make the country function. But there are traps, or at least there are potential traps in this. For example, you don't develop necessary skills because you are readily provided. So you don't have people who can sketch strategies because you have the international friends. They will do it for you. But who will do it in 20 years? If you don't have the staff, with the necessary experience. Very often, or at least I've seen a few examples, that there were projects imposed on or pushed by donors, and it was accepted by the local partners. And then when the donor discontinued with the support, the whole project just was abandoned actually by the local partners as well. Why? Because it was not their idea. Maybe it didn't even fit into the local political culture. So they didn't own it. Therefore, all the time and energy dedicated by the local partners to that project was completely a waste of energy. Of course, on the donor side as well, but now we are talking about the Kosovo side. Also, if I mentioned strategy, I have a great deal of discomfort when I hear that internationals write strategies for Kosovo on any topic. Because Kosovo state administration, first of all, must learn the skill to identify national interests and then work out a strategy which is really based upon national interest. And there is a process to dig out national interest, talking to the people, talking to business people, talking to the voters. So in this sense, I think international help on the long run can be troubling, even if it happens actually with the best intention. I try to just